Hey guys, it's not quiet in southern Italy in the greater Naples area at all. We have new earthquakes and we have somewhat of a mysterious land rise that has happened. And if that can be confirmed, the land rise did accelerate in just 1 week. And then we have more vandalism of seismic instruments that are crucial to detect the volcanic activity of Campi Flegrei, one of the most dangerous supervolcanoes in the world. So a lot is to be talked about in this video today. Let's start with the latest earthquake. It came with a roar again, and it did shake the residents again. So they don't have any quiet time. This volcano keeps scaring them and scaring them. So 1.9 at 7:23 a.m. on June 4th was another big one that did scare the residents because they really felt the tremor and they could hear it. So these sounds of these earthquakes, they go through your bones. And since these earthquakes are not related to any plate movements like subduction zone earthquakes and stuff like this, it's volcanic. That's why it's so scary, because you always think, if you feel these earthquakes and you hear their roar, will magma come up to the surface? And we know that the scientists have given warnings in the last few months. The scientists that work at the Vesuvius Observatory, that have a decades-long track record at the University of Rome and the Italian Institute of Volcanology and Geochemistry. So those guys, one guy has said in March, if it was up to me, if I had the resources, I would evacuate the area now. Other ones are saying, do not only prepare for the earthquakes, you have to prepare for the big case as well, and that would be a volcanic eruption. And even if it was only a small volcanic eruption, it would be devastating for an area with more than 3 million people, because Naples is kind of bedded between two bad guys, Vesuvius and Campi Flegrei. Campi Flegrei stretches around an area of 100-kilometer radius there. So it is really big. You see the red circle, so around 100 kilometers. So it was a rude awakening for many residents at the Campi Flegrei again at roughly a few minutes after 7. So it's like Groundhog Day. Every day almost there's a new one. So that earthquake happened again in the area between the Solfatara, this caldera of Campi Flegrei, in Pozzuoli, that is basically right on Campi Flegrei, and Peschiarelli. So also on the western outskirts of Naples. Residents distinctly felt this earthquake. And this earthquake activity is connected with bradyseism, with ground movements. So let's have a closer look into this, guys. This frightens me always a little bit when the ground is moving so much. So if you're following my channel, we've watched this in Iceland, on the Reykjanes Peninsula, underneath Svartsengi, where there's a geothermal power plant and the famous tourist attraction, the Blue Lagoon. The land always keeps rising before an eruption, and then an eruption happens, the land subsides, eruption stops, land keeps rising again, and stuff like this. So we're just watching and observing something like this in Iceland right now. But here at Campi Flegrei, the whole thing is a little bit more complex. It's a different kind of volcano, of course, but it's even more scary because it's so densely populated and the people are literally living on the volcano. You have to consider, if it stretches out 100 kilometers, and then you see on the aerial pictures how densely populated it is. One official just said last week that building permits were allowed there that can be considered criminal, and now they made that conclusion after the 4.4 earthquake that really rattled the region. They made the decision that no more new building permits would be allowed in the direct area of the caldera. But that nonetheless doesn't change the fact that we have millions of people that would be immediately affected by this volcano should there be even a minor eruption. So the increased seismicity continues to be detected underneath this Campi Flegrei caldera. So since yesterday, there were 27 more tremors that have been recorded by these seismic systems, the seismometers that they do have there. You see here on the map behind me where they all have these seismometers, and they also have them in the sea, in the Gulf of Pozzuoli, because Campi Flegrei stretches into the Gulf of Pozzuoli, and they're crucial to know what's going on. And that's why we'll talk about later that they're still being vandalized, and it keeps coming. So who is that dumb? Because whoever vandalizes these seismic instruments is in the area. So that means they will also not get any warning time if something happens, if Shizzy hits the fizzy, if they damage the crucial instruments. Because usually there is not much warning time, guys, as you know from Iceland, if you're watching my channel on a regular basis, right? So people must be brainless. That's my only conclusion that I can draw from this, but I'll tell you what happened again. And the Vesuvius Observatory and the INGV that monitor these seismic stations, they're really angry, and I understand them. So the INGV has released their new bulletin with all the updates for the week from May 27th till February 2nd. And it's interesting what's in there. So they're saying that for that week that they have recorded 56 earthquakes, so it keeps coming. And then most of these magnitudes were of course low, so that they would be in the microseismic events. That's normal for volcanoes. The strongest that they had in this week was 1.7, and now the week after we have just had a 1.9. But what is the most interesting, and they have released this in this graph that you can see behind me, we have to talk about this. That is the ground deformation, the land subsidence and the land rise, because this tells us whether something's going on underneath or not. So from mid-April to May 20th, May 20th was the day when that strong earthquake hit the region, the 4.4 earthquake. So in the week before that earthquakes, there was a land rise rate of 2 centimeters per month. That's what they had detected. So the land was rising. You see the graph behind me. You see the crust is lifting up. The land is rising. These could be magmatic fluids, gases, or magma. So 2 centimeters per month. Keep that in the back of your head, guys, because now I'll tell you what has happened now. That's why you need to remember the 2 centimeters. So during this strong earthquake swarm with many earthquakes and quite a few significant ones that were over magnitude 3, close to 4, and that 4.4. So during these 2 days, the ground was sinking. They don't know the exact centimeter, millimeters. The ground was sinking between 0.5 centimeter and 1 centimeter. So something was going out there, fluids, gases, whatever, or a small magma intrusion, that the land was sinking. And then it did come to a short still stand where nothing was happening, either sinking or neither sinking nor rising. And it had this standstill for several days. Nothing was happening until all of a sudden, in just a few days from May 29th to June 2nd, all of a sudden it started rising again at a accelerated rate. It did rise by 1 centimeter. So from May 29th to June 2nd, 4 days, 1 centimeter. And now remember the 2 centimeters. Before that seismic event on May 20th, it was 2 centimeters per month. So roughly 1 centimeter in 14 days. And now it did rise back 1 centimeter in 4 days. So why is that? There's a few theories, but do they all make sense? Let's talk about this, guys, because I know you're interested in this. This is the stuff that you like. I know this. So let's talk about this, guys. So let's say this trend continues, that it has this accelerated speed of land rise, then we would have way more than 2 centimeters per month, right? I mean, this remains to be determined until they have the next data for the next few days, but the monthly uplift rate would increase significantly, and that would be concerning, to say the least. But whether this is the case or not must be confirmed by further measurements and calculations, and they need to gather the data during this week that we're presently in, and then hopefully they will release some data in their next weekly bulletin. So I'm eagerly awaiting the next bulletin to see what's going to happen. But you see that graph here, it was going at a steady rate of these 2 centimeters per month, and then it goes like, right? It goes up. So that's what we have to monitor very, very closely right now with Campi Flegrei, because this is always an indication whether something's going on there. What are the theories why this is happening? So some say this could just be a short-term effect. So the ground that has previously subsided could basically bounce back, sort of thing. That would mean that there's still a lot of elasticity in that topsoil. And there have been reports and some studies and that have said through that Bradyseism is land uplift, land subsiding, land uplifting, land subsiding over the years and decades. This layer of rocks that keeps the lid on is getting more brittle and fractures by these movements. It wears out. If you have a rubber band and you keep stretching it out and putting it back together and stretching it out, at some point it loses the elasticity. And of course, in the case of a volcano, this increases the risk that magma might find a way straight up through that damaged crust. So one theory, it's springing back up in position like a rubber band to catch up with the level of the surrounding rock that the surrounding rock had. So we have to look at what this has done overall. So since January 2011, the floor of this caldera here of Campi Flegrei, Phlegraean fields, burning fields, by the way, if you translate this, there's a reason why it's called burning fields. It has risen about 122.5 centimeters. So over a meter, getting close towards 1.5 meters in some places. So this year already, we have seen a rise of 8.5 centimeters. So one theory is that the ground did sink because of this strong magnitude 4.4 earthquake. And this must have, that's what they're saying, caused some form of crack somewhere in the crust, which allowed gases from that hydrothermal system, you see it here on the graph behind me, that some gases that did previously raise the ground were able to escape. So then this was sinking, right? But there is a flaw in this theory. So it is contradicted by the fact that the gas sensors that are in place in these areas have not detected any significant fluctuations in the gas emissions. And that's why I said mysterious land rise. So if it wasn't the gases, what was it then? Because they're really, really closely monitoring the area. So even before the magnitude 4.4 earthquakes, residents have noticed that all of a sudden the scientists were showing up on a regular daily basis at this solfatara where these fumaroles are. These fumaroles are the hot steam vents that are coming out there because they had detected a rise in temperature. So why is the temperature rising? Is there magma coming closer to the surface? Plus, there was a groundbreaking study released that did confirm that the magma is way higher up than they previously thought, that there's a shallow magma chamber at a depth of only 4 to 5 kilometers in depth that is fed by a deeper lying magma reservoir. So they confirmed that, and that was also raising the levels of concern, because if it is so close, it doesn't have to rise that far to the top if it did want to cause a volcanic eruption. Plus, the warning time is greatly reduced to a few hours, probably. And that's why the scientists are worried and say, we need new evacuation plans. The ones that you have in place are not working. But the officials are kind of pushing this to the back of their heads, preparing for evacuations that are triggered by seismic events and not by an eruption. What they're observing in this area, and they still continue to observe this, is that the long-term trend of pressurization is continuing, and that the carbon dioxide emissions in this solfatara especially are generally still high. Nothing has changed there. The gas temperature at the Peschiarelli fumarole remained at 95 degrees. They're always measuring this from a distance of 5 meters, but they did notice an increase the last few weeks. So of course, people were concerned about this sudden land rise, and they were asking the Vesuvian Observatory. And basically what they were saying, oh, these are just fluctuations. So what do they mean with this? They are saying there are no significant changes in geochemical parameters over the last week. That's what they're saying in their bulletin. And they are saying on the basis of the current data and the picture that they have of the volcanic activity of Campi Flegrei, that there are no elements that would suggest significant short-term evolutions. Okay, could they please define short-term? Are we talking about a week, a month, years? So, okay, what does that mean, right? It's a weekly bulletin. So the press was curious as well. So they asked the Vesuvius Observatory and they said, can you please explain these data that you have released in your bulletin? And the Vesuvius Observatory explained it in a way that they were saying, the fact that the ground has risen by 1 centimeter in a week does not mean that the rate of lifting has increased, but that there are fluctuations. But fluctuations would mean that it's really, really varying on a regular base, right? Don't you think? Let's look into this. So they're saying these data are still preliminary and will need to be corrected potentially. What they also mention is that this ground subsidence that happened after the 4.4 earthquake, something like this did not occur when they had similar energetic events happening, similar earthquake swarms. It seems there was no land subsidence. They say they were phases of slowing down of that land rise. The curve was slowing down, flattening a little bit, but not subsiding. So they're explaining, as it sounds to me, the subsidence and the land rise with the word, it's a fluctuation. But is it, guys? And especially I'm asking you guys that are watching my videos about Iceland on a regular basis, because you guys have become experts, hopefully, on what it means if land rises and if land subsided. So are there a lot of fluctuations like that they're mentioning here in Iceland? I don't think so, right? Usually it always meant something. If the curve was flattening, if it was subsiding, if it was rising again. If you don't know what I'm talking about, hey, come to my channel, please subscribe and check out my Iceland videos. It's really, really interesting. So I have to say, I'm skeptical, and I'm not the only one, about what this means here. So we cannot draw any conclusions from this. Of course, we cannot say, oh, magma's on the way, and we can't. The science is not progressed far enough so that we could make any predictions here, and that's what we're hearing from the scientists. But I think next week, when we see the next bulletin that comes after this one, and hopefully that graph here will be updated, we will see what is going on. Is it going back to the same rate, like the 2 centimeters per month? We will have to see, guys. But now let's talk about the measuring stations that make these analyses possible. They have about 35 measuring stations around the Campi Flegrei and in the Gulf of Pozzuoli. And I told you in one of my last videos that some morons did vandalize. They stole batteries and threw them away, and they even did damage the ones in the Gulf of Pozzuoli. Like Vesuvius Observatory said, well, the boaters need to pay more attention. But was it a coincidence? Because it was like at the same time frame in the water and on land. Who knows? I don't want to get into any conspiracy theories. There's not enough information available. But I can tell you now what happened again. So the director of the Vesuvius Observatory, that is the guy whose teams are getting us these data. They're releasing these bulletins. They're crucial for knowing what is going on with that supervolcano that could wipe out the entire area. More than 3 million people live there. So Mauro Di Vito, director of the Vesuvius Observatory, has given a statement, and he said, these are fundamental data. We cannot lose them. Brady seism has slowed down, but it hasn't stopped. So he's upset about new damage that has occurred. So their equipment, the equipment, you can see this here. I mean, it's widely visible, that yellow buoy there that sticks out of the water. I don't know, guys, if you're boaters, if you're sailors. I grew up on boats. I've been sailing all my life, and honestly, never ever would I hit that thing. That, you know, it's not that this is in some narrow channel where you have to drive through and you're getting close, and it's clearly visible. So, and I'm pretty sure it's lit up at night as well. So I would say boaters that are out there, it could happen that it's hit accidentally. There's always some brainless people out there that think they are fit to drive a boat without proper education, or that are just dumb. Whatever, it can happen, but it's happening on a regular basis a little bit too often. And in my opinion, it's happening while we have such a critical phase here at Campi Flegrei in the Naples area. So this equipment that you see there in the picture that's down there, it was damaged again. So the director, he says, because these data are so critical to us, if you know anything, if you have seen anybody, please report it to us. And this was also launched, this appeal by him was launched over the radio stations, TV stations, press stations. He says, unfortunately, repeatedly there is damage to our marine instruments. These instruments are unique in the world because they are placed in shallow sea. Our instrumentation is at minus like 50, 60, 70 centimeters, and then it's pulled up. Then we have to intervene. So he's asking people, come forward if you have seen a boat do this, if you know who did this. And he says already in recent weeks, when they had a hearing with the Civil Defense Commission at the municipality of Naples, he had raised the alarm about this continuous vandalization and theft of these monitoring sensors that belong to the Vesuvian Observatory. And that's why he did launch this new appeal in light of this new damage. You know, he says, quote, sometimes I hope involuntarily they are pulled up by anchors and fishing nets. Furthermore, that area is closed to navigation. Nonetheless, anchoring and damage continue. Not only economic, but above all, the recording and sending of monitoring data to our control limit is interrupted. So anyone who sees it should tell the Port Authority about them and us as well, so that this fundamental equipment will not be damaged anymore. We are in a time of crisis and we cannot afford to lose these data. And you hear him, we are in a time of crisis. So you really have to understand this. Their staff works in 24-hour shifts. So they're monitoring Campi Flegrei around the clock. And it's also, there's an automatic analysis. These systems are in place that allow the detection and localization of seismic events. But they can only be automated if all these seismic stations that are forming this grid of data all over this Campi Flegrei system, because you know, we said it stretches around 100 kilometers. They need to be in place. And he says these systems are integrated into the visualization ones that they have as well. And this is how the dedicated staff, that's what he says, is able to, like every day of the year, to get an updated real-time analysis of the geophysical phenomenons in progress. So all seismic events with a magnitude greater than the thresholds that are established for Campi Flegrei and for the Campania volcanoes, significant seismic swarms or other events of potential relevance, are communicated from them to the Department of Civil Protection for surveillance purposes. The activities that they're carrying out, their seismological, their geodetic, volcanological, and of course geochemical monitoring, and they're based on different parameters, but all aimed at defining the volcanic dynamics of this area, and they need their measuring stations. And this observatory is the key also for the citizens and the population, that they feel more safe, because this information is transferred to the citizens and it contributes to, on the one side, raising the perception of safety in the population that is affected by recent Brady seism events. If they at least know what is going on. It's just a perception of safety. Is it really safety? I mean, the scientists did say we cannot guarantee safety, especially since they do not have working evacuation plans in place. So, scary things going on, I find, or let's say concerning events happening there. I'm here for you guys. I will follow up on this. So if you're interested in this, please subscribe, join our wonderful community of interested people, and I'd love to see you again for sure. And always click the notification bell. There is a video every day coming from me, guys. So thanks for watching. Please leave this video a like. That would be awesome. And I see you very, very soon. Stay safe, be prepared. Bye-bye.